What's going on, everybody? Hope you guys had a great weekend. So, going into this week, the week of the 24th to the 28th, starting off, we have XLC. So, with XLC, I actually would like to take calls above 57.77. Ultimately, we have a gap fill right here that gets completed at 58.59. So that would ultimately be our first price target based off the daily time frame for XLC. And from there, we have another price target at 59.43. Our third price target from there is 59.88. And then we have an equal level highs at 60.42. Now, we also have liquidity to take out on the downside. So we have a put trigger at 57.21. Ultimately, our first price target for the put trigger is not the greatest. It's only 21 cents at 57. And then from there, we also have another price target to come take out at 55.58. Now going into XLY. XLY, as we can see, we've have currently just broken out of the trend line. We're still holding above this uptrend, as we can see here. Market structure is presenting itself, so full time frame continuity to the upside as well. Or actually, no, it's not full time frame continuity just yet. So we will get the monthly flip. So we potentially actually will get the monthly flip at our call trigger based off the daily time frame that will flip the month into full time frame continuity. So going off of that, I would like to take calls above 147, above 147.96. Ultimate first price target is 149.63. From there, 153.43, and then up to the highs at 157.54. Now we also have a put trigger, but like I said, full time frame continuity is to the upside right now, so be careful with the put trigger. But I would look to take puts below 145.81, ultimately targeting 142.59, and that is XLY. XLP has been showing a lot of strength recently. So with XLP, we called out the downtrend line break actually back literally a month ago, and it's still uptrending to this very moment. So looking to take calls above 76.97, ultimately looking to take out our liquidity that we have yet to taken out since, what is this? Since April of 2022 at 79.26, which will also trigger the 2 up on the quarter, if I'm not mistaken. And we also have puts. I would also suggest to take puts below 76.41. We do have a gap fill. And then from there, we have our ultimate second price target at 74.97. And then we have another gap fill to the downside at 74.11. Then we have XLE, same kind of thing. XLE has been showing a lot of relative strength. So with XLE, would look to take calls above 85.83, ultimately to take out these highs at 87.74. From there, head to 89, 89.73, and then up to 92.19. We do have a put trigger as well, but remember this gap was created by a substantial amount of institutions stepping in as acting as buyers. With that being said, I wouldn't really look to take the put trigger much past 50% of the gap fill or the gap fill. So I would look to take puts below 84.60. Overall targeting first price target 84.25. Not the greatest. Second price target is 50% of the gap fill, which is at 83.54. And then from there, the gap fill gets completed at 82.72.
All right, guys, now taking a look here at XLI on the daily, we have an outside bar followed by a 2 down here that we did trigger. We did pull back up into the previous day's range, which is nice to see. We could turn this back around and maybe get this level of liquidity up here at 101.70. We do take a look here at the weekly, though, that is our high of the week, and we did sweep liquidity here on the week, so we can take a look here at that. We have this massive failed 2 up, and then we went inside on the week. We went up, got back to this level. Seller stepped in and pushed the stock back down. So really on the week, you're going to be looking for puts below 99.94 to the downside, with your first PT being all the way down here at the bottom, the base of 97.39. If you do want calls, your trigger's going to be 101.70 to the upside. And really, we would have to hop down to the daily to see what our intermediate price targets would be, but your main target for the week would be 104.18. Keep in mind, we do have a lot of earnings this week, so the market is definitely going to be volatile, to say the least. We also do have a new 2-week candle opening up as well this week. So you can see here that we had last 2-week candle was a 2 up here, pretty much finished a doji. We closed inside all the way to the upside. We pretty much had equal highs here, which is interesting to look at. Are we going to sweep those relative equal highs, trigger, and come up here all the way to 104.18 and sweep this level of liquidity? Or are we going to reverse back down? Given the body of this and looking at the volume over the past 2 weeks, we definitely do have a good amount of buying pressure here. The huge level just to keep your eyes on is going to be this 101.70. We break that level to the upside, I think we're going to be in a pretty good position to get calls all the way up to 104.18. So that's the 2-week candle on XLI. Let's go over here to XLB. Take a look at the daily. How did we close out the week? We got a 3-2 down hammer here, which is nice to see. We hop over here to the weekly. We kind of have it is almost like a hanging man. We did trigger up here and we fell back down. So for your puts, it's going to be 80.25 is going to be your trigger. For your calls, it's going to be 82.01 is going to be your trigger for calls. Really for your call PT, 84.27 on the week. And then for your put trigger, for your put target, it's going to be 79.32. We can hop down here to the daily and look at these levels for calls to the upside. So we can look at 82.32 as well as getting this volume imbalance filled right here. So let me circle that out as well to the upside if we wanted to play that call trigger to the upside. Puts to the downside, really, we got that trigger on the weekly here at 80.25 and 79.32. We hop back here to the daily time frame, 79.32, and then we got a gap down here as well that we're going to have to be careful of. So keep in mind with all of your gaps, highlight all of them because we do sometimes fill these, and I like to put 50% of my gaps in because sometimes we do see that 50% gap fill and then reversing back up. So just keep that in mind. But taking a look here at the 2-week, we got a 2 up here, so we got continuation. Are we going to get the continuation upwards, or are we going to stay inside, or maybe reverse back down, grab liquidity, and then come back up here to sweep this candle high? It will be something that we'll have to take a look at. So next ETF to take a look at is going to be XLRE. This one still is kind of just basing here, really waiting on the Fed and what is the Fed going to do? Are they going to hike 25 basis points or not? If we take a look here at the weekly time frame, we got a 3-1 set up, aka a holy grail. So as you know, inside bars are my favorite to play. To the upside, 37.69 is going to be your call trigger, followed by your first PT at 37.88, followed by 38.96. Now your put trigger here is going to be 36.62, followed by a PT here at 36.34, and then to the downside, we're going to have 35 flat as well. Really, with this candle combination, it's going to be interesting to see because a 3-1 is kind of powerful. It means you kind of break out buyers and sell. You kind of stop out both buyers and sellers, and then you kind of just agree for a little bit. And I'll be curious to see who takes this, and definitely have this in mind coming into this week. Also taking a look here at the 2-week candle as well, we did go 2-2 up. We did kind of encounter some selling pressure here, so I'm curious to see if we can get a body closure above these levels here. If we zoom in, if we can get a body closure above these levels, or if we're going to reverse back down here and then maybe come back up, who knows. If we take a look at XLK, now keep in mind, XLK, we have a lot of tech earnings. Be sure to look at the earnings that are reporting this week. A lot of tech reports this week, so tech is definitely going to move, to say the least. So on the daily, we did have that outside bar followed by a 2 down hammer here. Definitely looks like we did sweep a level of liquidity, and we're looking to reverse back up on the daily time frame. If we take a look at the weekly time frame here, we've kind of just been creating a little bit of a flag here and just basically basing, and I think this is all due to earnings. And one way or another, we're going to get and move out of this range that we've pretty much been stuck in. We did sweep kind of this level of liquidity up here at 150, 186. So this is going to be a level of resistance for us. But the fact that we've been really basing here at, what is this, 146.51 is definitely a good sign. Now, if we want to take a look at our triggers on the week, our triggers for calls is going to be 150.73. And then to the downside for puts, it's going to be 146.80. And really, when we take a look at puts, our next PT after this trigger is going to be 142.85. For calls, 150.73. Really, after that, it's going to be this wick up here at 151.86. So tech is definitely going to move the market this week. So just keep that in mind. All those earnings, I cannot stress it enough. Earnings, 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 earnings. This is going to be a huge week for the market. Now, if we take a look at XLU and cover the daily on XLU, utilities has pretty much been basing for a little bit and had a nice outbreak, and now it's looking like it's consolidating again within a range. So on the daily, we did get a trigger 2 up, and then we retraced back down here. If we take a look at the weekly time frame, we did finish inside on the week. So very easy thing to do. We got our call trigger hit 70.71. Really, on the weekly time frame, look at it, 71.89 is going to be really your PT that you're aiming for. You could take 70.16, but you're talking about a 5-cent move. So really, you're going to be looking for 71.89 for calls. Puts, 68.58 is definitely going to be that trigger for you. And then to the downside, you're going to be wanting to look at 66.85. We do have a squeeze forming here. A decent bit of buyers stepped in for this week of consolidation. If we take a look at the 2-week, yeah, we really got this 2 up, and then we got a 2 up, we triggered, and then we retraced a bit. So it's going to be curious to see if we can get a body closure back above this level here on this wick, which is at 69.96. So if we can get a closure above that, we should see a nice move to the upside on XLU. Now, if we want to take a look at my watch list for the week, we're going to start it off here with AMD. AMD is definitely a stock that I have my eyes on because SMH, if you take a look at the chart to cover this sector really quickly, has been kind of flagging in my personal opinion. When you really take a look at it, we've been flagging here and we've been moving down. We did just sweep this level of liquidity here, which is interesting to think about at 246.43. Are we going to reverse back up, or are we going to continue moving down? Because we also kind of have a nice structure formed down here at 233.09 as well. So really, this is going to be a critical point to look at. I believe AMD reports this week, but not NVIDIA. You'll have to double check that. But it's something interesting to look at. SMH does look relatively weak to me. If we take a look here at the weekly time frame, we had that 3-1, 2 down, 2 down, and we've swept this level of liquidity, and we have relative equal lows right now. If we break those, 233.09 is going to be the point that I'm really going to be looking at on SMH. Now, to get back to the watch list and take a look here at AMD. On the daily, you can see we've really been having this downtrend line here, just keeping the stock down, and we've been slowly moving down, kind of middle of the triangle right here kind of thing. We can come down here. We can see that we have levels of liquidity down here at 81.63. We have a level of liquidity here at 78.52 as well. We also do have a nice fair value gap that we can highlight here as well, which might be a decent target area to take a look at for AMD and maybe try to play a bounce here. But the huge thing that I'm looking at is this trend line that we've been moving up on going to hold, or is it not going to hold? Because we've been just constantly getting rejected by this downtrend line right now. If we take a look at the weekly time frame, you can really see it. We got that nice nasty outside bar, got that 2 up, couldn't get that body closure above this level of liquidity right here at 97.60, and then it was just down, 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 down kind of thing. So I'm curious to see what's going to go on here with AMD if we're going to fall down here into this fair value gap on the daily time frame. we've pretty much filled it on the weekly time frame. We have a little bit left to go. But you can see that we do have levels of liquidity down here as well. We take a look at the 2-week. The 2-week, you got that two up, inside bar, 2 down. We didn't get the full measured move, so will that full measured move pan out this week? I kind of think so. I'm definitely leaning shorts on AMD. So if we delete all of this and play our triggers here for the week, the short side, you're going to be looking at 88.06. And for the long side, you're going to be looking at 92.16. Let's hop down to the daily to really get our targets honed in here. On the daily for calls, you're going to be looking at 92.97. Really followed by, I mean, it's going to be a stretch. If AMD does report this week, they report, okay, so they don't report this week, they report next week. So May 2nd. So we could see the stock literally just chop within this range here, or we could see a move down into earnings and then a pop up. So really, 99.53 is going to be that second PT for calls. To the downside, really, 86.22 is going to be a level that I'm going to be looking at, really followed by this line down here of 81.63. I mean, I think 86.22 is going to be in the cards. This 81.63 does seem more of like an earnings move to me, just my personal opinion. So really, AMD, I'm looking at for it to the downside and playing shorts on it this week. The next one I have is Fidelity. This is a stock that I've not really paid a lot of attention to, but it's starting to get my attention because banks have been doing really well and seeing a nice retracement, and Fidelity kind of seems to be a lagger here. Now, they do have earnings coming up this week, so just keep that in mind. It is going to, the huge move could come during earnings kind of thing, so just bear mind with that. But when we take a look here at the weekly time frame, we have a couple of volume imbalances that I want to highlight at that we did fill one of. And that's one thing I want to point out is we did fill this and we got rejected by it on Friday. So if we're to pop back through and come up here and fill this out, they have a more balanced chart on the daily time frame. If we take a look here at the weekly time frame, we did have a failed 2 up here and we did retrace back a fair bit here. Let's take a look here. Did we bounce at the 50%? Yeah, we bounced at the 50%. 618, yeah, we bounced at the 618 too. So we could be seeing this move up here and take a nice 618 to 236 bounce. That's something that I would be looking at. You did see a good amount of sellers step in. There were some buyers on the week. If we take a look here at the 2-week, you got the 2-1-2 up kind of thing. So we're going to get that 2-2 continuation. If we take a look at the 3-week, yeah, you got that 2 down, inside, 2 up. We've currently failed. What would be 50% of this 3-week? Just give me my 50%, not my 6182. So 50% would be 5309. So we could see a retrace down further here if this 618 bounce doesn't hold. So Fidelity, really looking at it to the upside. Your calls are going to be at a trigger 5828. Let's actually delete all these lines and clean this up. So 5828 for your call trigger. For your put trigger, it's going to be 5517 to the downside. PT1 would be 5397, followed by PT2 would be 5251. For puts, to the upside, for looking at calls, really the huge thing that I'm going to target is going to be this volume imbalance here, because I want this to get filled and see how the stock reacts around it, which is between 59.12 and 59.76. With the earnings of Fidelity this week, this is entirely possible for this to get filled and for these candles to get filled to the upside. I mean, ultimately, my target would be 62.82 to get all the way back up here and see how that is. The sellers definitely do have a lot of pressure on the stock right here, because you can see how quickly we came down, and then it's how long has it taken for us to move back up a little bit just to get at this range. So sellers are definitely still in control of this stock. So keep that in mind. The next stock I want to talk about is going to be Target. So Target on the daily, we had this failed 2 down. We had a successful 2 down here. We got a 2 up shooter here. So immediately I'm thinking bearish Randy Jackson here on the daily. So if we want to play that to the downside, 160.94 is going to be your PT, and then your trigger, your immediate PT is going to be 159.78 for a quick scalp. We want to take a look at it on the weekly time frame. That 159.78 is going to be our put trigger. And then to the downside, we're going to want to be looking at 155.92 for puts. For our call trigger, 164.53. This could go outside, so the 3, 2 down, 2 up, and to just completely rip everyone's heads and just be like, what the heck is going on here? It's entirely possible, because if we dive down here really to the daily, you can see that this is a huge level that we haven't closed a body above. And really outside of that, our next PT would be all the way up here at 177. We do have this fair value gap as well. So it's a huge thing. And like if target does trigger up on the week, keep your eye on it because it could absolutely move. We do have earnings coming up as well on May 17th. So do keep that in mind. So I'm personally leaning more to the downside and getting that continuation because this candle kind of seems indecision, but it could form what would essentially be a kicker pattern and we could get that trigger up. Honestly, I'm going to keep an alert here at 164.53 and say buy calls because this could be a huge head turner here and really be the mover of the week outside of everything tech related. We take a look at the 2 week here. Yeah, you got that 2 down, 2 down, 2 up, 2 up. You got the failed 2 up here. So could we stay inside or could we just reverse and get that trigger up and completely wipe this candle out? There is a nice squeeze present as well. And the stock pretty much has just been basing within a range. And you can really see like structure wise, what is this level right here? 175.11 is going to be a huge level for the stock outside of that. What is this? 171, 170.77. So that's going to be a couple huge levels to kind of play into account here on the larger time frames. It does have a squeeze present. We could move up. I mean, we could also move down here because we do have this level here. We did sweep liquidity multiple times here and we're creating lower lows. My bad, higher lows each time as we're going up through this. So it is something to take a look at. We are moving in an upwards direction. So target, ultimately, I'm looking for it to the downside, but I could absolutely see this playing out to the upside and being a massive ripper. Now to take a look at the second to last stock here is Shop. Shop is pretty much at a down trend line here on the daily time frame, so I'm curious to see how it's going to react. We do see a squeeze present. We did see a good amount of buyers step in as well. So we could come up here and grab this level of liquidity at 53.70. Ultimate PT on the daily would be 54.67. We hop down here to the weekly time frame. We do got that outside bar 322 continuation. Does look like we're aiming for these levels of liquidity. So your call trigger is going to be 49.86. And you're going to be really looking at those two levels for your price targets. For puts, if we wanted to play this to the downside and say tech sells off this whole entire week, 45.91 is going to be that put trigger, as well as 44.05. Now, the huge thing I want to stress, and this is a lesson that I've learned the hard way, is if we reject this trend line, do not wait for this put trigger, because I can't tell you how many moves I've missed because I was like, oh, well, my put trigger's down here. I gotta wait for this. If you reject a trend line, use the trend line as your stop loss, set a trailing stop loss, and ride that baby down because trust me, those things move. I saw Roku do it and I saw Enphase do it and I was like, good Lord. All right, now the second to last stock to take a look at here is going to be DE, the good old industrials. So really for the week, to take a look at this, we have a 3-1-2 up. We have a fail 2 up here, nice shooter. So this is going to be really easy to play. To the downside, 385.30 is going to be your put trigger. Your call trigger is going to be 399.61. Let's hop over to the daily to get those PTs here. So your PT for your put trigger is going to be 379.06 for your PT1, and then really 366.10. We do have a volume imbalance that I want to highlight out here that we have wicked out of and we rejected. So that's going to be definitely interesting. Really to the upside, if we get our call trigger here at 399.61. Our ultimate PT is going to be at 414.88. We do have full time frame continuity to the downside. We do have a lot of selling pressure stepping in. Let's take a look at the 2-week before we move on. Yep, we got a 3-1 on the inside. So if you want to play this for the 2-week and play yourself a nice swing here, come on, lines, work with me. 399.61, 368.51 is going to be your trigger to the downside. And really, once you get that put, you're going to be looking at 349.07. And if you get that call trigger, you're going to be looking at 419.40. If we hop up to the 3-month just to entertain this, yeah. So we got a 2 up, inside bar, 2 down. So really, we're going to be looking for this full measured move to complete down here. And we have a volume imbalance as well down here on the quarterly time frame, which is going to be interesting to take a look at. Let's zoom this in more so we can grab this. So really taking a look at this, DE could fall all the way down to 340. So you could play this 2-week swing and maybe consider rolling it. The huge thing is I would just keep my stop loss up here at 399.61. Really, when I play calls or puts, normally the opposite trigger is going to be my stop loss and invalidation of my play. But that's all I got for you guys this week. I'll hand it back over to Zeus for his watch list sum.
Alrighty, everybody. So going into this week, we have Netflix. So Netflix, I honestly like calls over 328.04 to target potentially this 337.17 level, and then potentially even going up to 347.52. And if it really wants to, it can give us the gap fill at 350.59. All we need to do is see this displacement above this trend line break, and ultimately we will more than likely fill this gap and ultimately head to 337.17 by the end of this week. Now, if the puts were to trigger, that's also something to watch because we are at a trend line and we know trend lines can also reject and shoot back down. And as a little ICT rule, this kind of does look like a power of 3. So we can see potentially that push down, grab liquidity, sweep liquidity, then get the actual trend line break potentially. So I would also look for to take puts under 324.96 overall to target down below that 312.15 liquidity that we have yet to grab. Now on SQ, we've been watching it. We watched it last week. We're still watching it going into this week. The reason why, as you can see, SQ finally has given us the trendline breakout. So this is one of the top plays for this week. We already have the confirmation that we did get the breakout. So now it's just a matter of time to just buy our contracts and hold tight. So ultimately looking to take SQ calls above 63.57 overall to target 65.62, and then from there we have a very minor gap fill. It's not a big gap fill, but we know all gaps tend to get filled. So we have a gap fill at 68.10, and if we want to go above that, we have equal highs at 70.32, and then we have a larger gap that also gets filled at 72.65. Now, I'm not really interested in the downside, but SQ also does have a put trigger below 62.24, and you can potentially target that gap fill to the downside at 60.70. And then from there, you would go down to take out this sell side liquidity at 59.11. And last and certainly not least is Meta. So if we look at Meta here, Meta actually, we have that trendline breakout, or trendline breakdown, my apologies, that we got back from last week, at the start of the week. We are trending down. We haven't grabbed liquidity just yet, but Meta kind of similar setup to where I like calls over 213.40. As long as we get that trendline break confirmation, then we're definitely going up to 216, and then from there to 222.11 and up to 224.28. Now, with Meta, we have to actually be patient and wait for the actual trend line to break or to reject. Now, we also have a put trigger below 211.66 to take us down to 208.65, this liquidity that we have yet to grab. And if we get that continuation below that 208.65 level, then we can likely target 203.28.